I got started in astrology at about age 19, and that's a significant cycle because astrology is all about rhythms and patterns and cycles. But my personal experience came through a event that in my life with my family and my brothers and sisters and in the neighborhood that caused me to look very deeply into my life. And at that point, I wanted to find a deeper meaning of life. I couldn't find it religiously because it just didn't fit for me. And it's not because I didn't have a strong religious background. My grandparents who raised me for many years were preachers in North Carolina. So I went to church 3 to 4 times a week. And I've always had a strong reverence for the Christian religions. However, I could not find my answers in what the Christian religion requires, which is faith. Even though faith has its place in astrology, I had to find a deeper meaning. So I found myself just in search. I began to read almost everything that I could possibly find. I began to move around in my area that I lived in, which at the time was Arlington, Virginia. And I just began to read all the materials I could about philosophies, and somehow I ran across the word astrology. And it seemed to have some kind of significance because the signs seemed to reflect a unique definition that I could see in people's character. So at the time, there was an organization in Georgetown, which is in Washington, D.C., called YES. And due to my general nature of my intestinal, my eating habits, I found that at about age 19, I wanted to change up even how I ate. So I stopped eating meat and decided to begin to experiment as a vegetarian. This organization called YES was a organic vegetarian place back in the late 60s and early 70s, something that really wasn't very much, you didn't see very many of those places. So it stood out as a very unique place for me. I found that I could satisfy my personal eating habits, but it also came with a bookstore. And in the bookstore, it had a lot of holistic, so-called at that time, holistic astrology. Some of the people who championed that theme was Dane Rudyard, who introduced me to the concept of collective consciousness. Collective consciousness means that large groups of people think the same way simply because they are of a same generation. And that idea stuck, though. I decided to investigate it deeper, and I began to read more and more about it. And I found out that at that particular time, my age 19 corresponded to what's called a cycle of the North Node, which reflected in astrology is a period of the stage of assessment. Now, we'll all find ourselves, regardless of who we are, find themselves very much related or relating to assessing their life somewhat at age 19. If you're not so tied up in, college or the military or some other aspect of life, then you'll find yourself truly assessing where you are in life. And that brought me to a very significant point. I looked at, after looking into astrology, I had my chart done, and I found out that my moon and my North Node were all in the 6th house of personal health, which reflected, astrologically reflected someone who is instinctively sensitive to their personal health. And it also corresponded with that cycle of the North Node, which wanted me to be aware of myself and what my life meant up to that point. And that's how it began. And since then, it's just been a steady sense of growth and assessment of knowledge and a learning process. On the background of the stars are actually well beyond the planets. The planets, the Sun, Moon, Mercury, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, all of those planets actually are on this imaginary line in the sky called the ecliptic. The stars, most of the stars are well beyond that. In fact, the stars are just other suns. So,
okay. So it's about the planets.
it's about the planets. The stars have modifications. They do modify a chart. When you have a star that's prominent in your chart, it's
Now, what would be a star?
a star may be Regulus. There's a star called Regulus, which is or Sirius. The brightest star
Sirius.
in the sky
Okay, I got
is Sirius, and it's called a dog star. It's related to the constellation Canis Major, but it's called a dog star. It's very close to the constellation Orion. And the way the myth goes is that Orion was the hunter, and he had two dogs, Canis Major and Canis Minor. And every night when the stars came out, Orion the hunter would go out searching for his whatever it is he's searching for, and he has his two dogs with him. As the planets, they move through the constellations. So a star, a planet that's moving through Sirius or through Orion or Procyon, which is in Canis Major, they're going to modify that planet. For instance, if you have the sun modified by Sirius, then you have a powerful sense of immortality about you. Usually, if your sun is in the 10th house with Sirius, that means you will probably go down as some type of immortal in history, in our world as humans. However, it also means that you could be burnt by it, which means that you will die as a legend of some sort. But Sirius, being the brightest star in the sky, is extremely powerful. Wherever it is in someone's chart, it's going to modify it tremendously. It's going to make them an immortal. And it changes. And, you know, right now you've probably heard the idea that we are in the age of Pisces, but we're on the dawn of the age of Aquarius.
Well, when does that come in? Because I heard we were in the age of Aquarius.
Well, we aren't. I can show the simulation on my computer.
Yeah, when does that come
Actually, if you look at it on the computer, it's about 400 years from now. However, that's not the way the influence works. The influence actually begins ages before the lineup is actually there, ages before we are actually in that constellation.
Okay.
For instance, if you look at the age of Pisces, hundreds of years before the birth of Christ, because that's what the age of Pisces brought in, the great religions, and it was heralded by the birth of Christ. It's the age of compassion and religion.
Okay.
Hundreds of years before Christ came, people were talking about the coming of the new God. Moses even talked about him.
Right.
You know, when he was freeing the slaves, they all talked about him. That's what all of the scriptures and so-called the scriptures are basically, you know, the scrolls, the hidden scrolls
Right.
that they find. But they were writing about the age of Jesus Christ hundreds, 400 and 500 years before he came. So the influence was already in the mindset, just like the age of Aquarius is entering in the mindset of us in that idea of collective consciousness. We are part of that collective consciousness idea because we are actually parts of generations. But the age of Aquarius is influentially very close to where we are right now. We're feeling that. And as that age passes, as that age enters, we lose the age of Pisces. So what it really means is that most of the great religions, you know, Judaism, Christianity, Islam, Krishna, whatever Buddhism, Hinduism, all of those isms will slowly fade. It won't be that they won't be relevant anymore, but they won't be relevant to the needs of humanity as much. And we will enter a new age, which is all about the age of human. That's what the age of Aquarius is all about, the common man.
Like enlightenment?
Enlightenment, that's exactly what it is. It's enlightenment for the common man, our brotherhood. You know, everybody will be more conscious of the earth and how we are here together. And we won't need books or religious isms to guide us as much as we have right now. Right. You know, it's all reflecting that sense of humanity, spreading brotherhood throughout the world. And technology is bringing that in real closely too, as you know. All you have to do is look at social media. It's fighting and probably limiting the separation of time and space as we speak. I mean, you can pick up a phone and put Skype, and you can talk to someone in China, and it's just like you're right there. Already, you have, in a sense, defeated or somehow modified that separation of time and space.
Yeah.
And that's what technology is doing. But ultimately, what astrology says is that once we become completely conscious, then we will think and it will be. Just like they consider what God is. What God simply has to do is say it is. But we are so far from that I don't know if we will even evolve to that level if we keep destroying ourselves. This isn't the first world, so it could have happened before. Okay, now the planets represent certain energies.
Right.
And the energies are what are reflected in our lives in certain patterns. So if I'll go through the planets first, but the sun and the moon are not considered planets.
Okay.
They are considered luminaries because the sun is so powerful and the moon is simply a reflection of the sun. It is our instincts for the most part. It has the moon is not alive. It's simply dead.
Okay.
Its only purpose is to reflect the essence of the sun. And as we see, as the moon goes through phases, we can use it as a timing device. But the sun being the luminary, and it is truly the most powerful energy on the earth and in our universe, it's considered our vitality in its easiest sense.
Okay, so the sun is vitality.
The sun is vitality. Wherever you see the sun in your chart will be where your life unfolds. So if it's in the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, or sixth, whatever house it's in is where you will find that your life is unfolding. Once you do a chart, you'll see that's pretty much a common trait. The moon is our instincts. Now, I said it's a dead, it's dead, and it's only reflected by the sun, but it's a reflection of the sun. But I call it our instincts because it's related to our karma and our past. In the natal chart, it's also related to the mother. But what it means is that it reflects things that we've been before. If you have a moon in a certain sign, you will know that experience without having to learn it. For instance,
Like a past life?
Like a past life. It's an energy that you have been before. For instance, if you have someone with a moon in Aries, you don't have to tell them how to be a leader. They naturally are a leader because Aries are leaders. They are aggressive, they are projective, they are all about the me, I. It's all about me, and they're very strong. Anybody with a moon in Aries is a born leader. Now, it doesn't always fit well in their life because he could, have a weak sun and not be able to project, really carry that sense of leadership. But he's always the one who's out front, always projecting himself. If it's in Cancer, it's a natural nurturer. It's someone who knows how to nurture without anybody telling them. And their mother has a strong influence upon their life. Their mother being truly a nurturing energy. All mothers are nurturers. So the moon is a reflection of the mother and instinctively what they provided to them. But it's it's like a past life, but it's a past existence. It's an essence that it's what we call the instincts of animals. You don't have to tell a snake to bite or an alligator. They come out with instincts that the mother has no maternal connection with them. Mother alligator just drops them and walks off. And mother snake drops them and walks off, and the snake just fends for itself from J1. They have all of the qualities they need. A rattlesnake will bite you and poison you as a baby just like a big one. But it instinctively knows what to do. It has no choice in the matter. And you've heard the one about the frog. Right. He crossed with the frog and still got bit because that's what he does. So that's the nature of the moon, is to reflect a sense of instinct.